Back at the start of rerouting, we asked several questions, probably too many, but the core questions were, why am I here? Where am I going? And how do I get there? Those are the core questions. And over the last 8 weeks, especially the last 4 weeks as we've been telling the story, this gospel, what we call the kerygma, over the last 4 weeks, it's become increasingly clear that our lives only make sense within this story, within this narrative. The world and the culture around us, so many other people are going to propose a lot of other stories and narratives and solutions. The problem is that they're always going to fall short. They're never going to truly satisfy. They work for a while, they do, but then they just come up really empty really fast. And so we discover it's only Christ. And without Christ, everything else begins to fall apart. We're stuck. And what we talked about is this state of captivity. We're trapped in a position within which we can never be truly happy. We just can't do it. And so that's why last week as we were discussing the gospel, the good news, we discovered that Jesus, he's come to our aid. God has come to our aid in order to rescue us, to pull us out of this situation. That's what he comes to do. And why does he do this? It's as simple as this. It's because you matter. You matter to God. You're worth the trouble. This is what love does. It wants to draw us closer to him. The big question, though, for us today, and that we have to start answering over the next couple of weeks, is, so what now what? What do I do? How am I supposed to respond? What am I supposed to do with this? Cool, thanks, Jesus, but what am I supposed to do? I don't know if you remember the very beginning of rerouting. I told you that we had the gospel reading on the very first Sunday of rerouting. And I told you then that gospel was perfect, but also not so perfect because it really spoiled our response. But this was the gospel, in case you don't remember. Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee when he saw two brothers, Simon Peter and his brother Andrew. And he called to them, "Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." What does Jesus do then? What's he doing now? It's the exact same thing. He sees us, and he calls us to follow him. He calls us to leave our normal way of life behind, our normal day in and day out, the way we usually see things, the way we've been looking at our life for so long. He asks us to leave that behind and to embark upon a new path, to follow him. And this is what Simon Peter and Andrew do. We're told that they immediately leave their nets. They drop everything, and they follow after him. They make this man the central priority of their life. This person all of a sudden becomes the single biggest preoccupation of their life. They follow him. They entrust their lives to him. Their response should be our response as well. To entrust our lives to him, to follow him, to leave the normal way that we follow, the normal way we look at our life behind, and to strike out and to follow him, to live our lives in a new way. The thing is, so you remember our cool name for this all, rerouting? If you've been rerouted, which technically if you didn't leave by now, you've been rerouted. There's the good news, you've been rerouted. But we stole this from a GPS. So it's like when you take a wrong turn and your phone tells you, all right, let me reroute you real quick. Within about 2.5 seconds, your GPS has figured out the new route. It doesn't take long. But then at that point, even though you've been rerouted, I'm holding a dumb phone. Even though you've been rerouted, you still have to make a decision. Am I going to follow the path that's been given to me here? Am I going to follow these new directions? That's the point that we're at now in rerouting. We've been given the new map. We've been shown, I've been off course a little bit. I've been given a new map, but now I have to respond. I have to decide. Our road sign this week, if you look at the top right corner of your little outline, the road sign this week is fork in the road. Because this is where we have to make a decision. We have to decide. There's no middle road. We have to decide, all right, am I going to continue to live my life as I've been doing it before, kind of go my own way, do my own thing? Or am I going to turn onto this road? Am I going to follow this new path that's been given to me, to entrust my life to the Lord, to surrender my life to him and to his plan? And if we can't do that, we have to start asking, what holds me back? What is it that holds me back from doing that? I've told you before about my favorite documentary ever, but I have to tell you again because, one, it's literally the most powerful film I've ever watched in my entire life. So if you have no other thing to do today, that's your homework today, is go watch this. But also because this film is so powerful because it's everything that we've been talking about for the past several weeks. The film is also called The Rescue. Coincident? I don't know, but probably. But it's this National Geographic documentary about that event back in 2018, which most of us probably remember. There's those 12 boys in Thailand and their coach that got trapped in the caves there. After practice one day, these teenage boys and their coach, they go have some fun. They go to these caves in Thailand. And again, it's not like they're doing these dangerous things. It's a national park. People go into these caves all the time. It's what you do. The thing is, they usually close them off a couple of months after they enter in, because the monsoon season shows up in Thailand and they become very dangerous. But they're in there before that, before it gets closed off. The thing is, the monsoon season showed up a few months early that year in Thailand. So while they're in there, the rains come, the caves fill with water, and they're trapped. They get stuck. Luckily, they're able to climb up to a higher ground in the cave system, and so they're sitting on this little shelf in the cave system where the water's just right below them. So they're above the water line, but they know it's not going to be too pretty for too long. So they're fully aware. They're fully aware that in this situation that they're in, they are stuck. They're trapped. There's zero that they can do. And they know that hoping against hope, praying, just a prayer every single day, I'm sure, they begin hoping against hope that someone will come to rescue them. They can't do it themselves, and they're keenly aware of that. Eventually, the people outside, they figure out what's going on and that these boys are missing and where they're at. And so the Thai Navy SEALs get called in. And they try to figure this out on their own, but they can't do it. They just realize we don't have the expertise, we don't have the ability to do this. And so they call exactly who you would expect them to call. An IT specialist and a retired fireman from Great Britain. The reason is because these guys are revered as some of the most wonderful cave divers in the world, but cave diving is not really a popular sport, so it doesn't really bring home the bacon. So it's just their weekend hobby. They just do this on the weekends for fun. And yet, they're the two most experienced and the two most revered cave divers in the world. So all of a sudden, this IT man and this retired firefighter become the two most important people in the entire world. Because these are the only two people that have the ability to rescue these boys. So they get flown out to Thailand. And after a few days of diving in the caves, they find the boys. It's not hard for them. They're very good at what they do. So within a couple of days, they find the boys. They find them safe and secure. So that's great. That's not the problem, though. What they immediately recognize when they find them is, how are we supposed to get these boys out? How are we supposed to do that? Because they realize the only way you can get them out is the same way that they got in. They tried and they talked about trying to drill a hole, like Chilean miner style, through the mountain to where these boys were at. And they recognize we just can't do that. It's not going to work. And so they know the only way we can get them out is the same way we got in here, which is underwater through all of these caves. The rains are coming, though. They don't have all year to figure out a nice plan. They have to get them out within a couple of days. And so they're at this point of decision. They have to decide, are we going to try to get these boys out underwater through the caves? Or do we just leave them here to die? Do we try to get them out through the caves underwater, in which it's very likely that they could die? It's not a safe thing to do this. Or do we just let them sit there and die anyway? The problem was this. If you're going to try to get a bunch of 15-year-old boys to cave dive for the first time, it's not going to go well. The anxiety from it, just imagine yourself, and don't do it if you're going to have an anxiety attack, please, today, but again, just imagine it, putting on all this scuba gear, and then trying to crawl through and swim through these very, very tight, very claustrophobic caves. They recognize it takes experienced cave divers years to be able to pull these sorts of things off. And they have 2 days to do it with these boys. You're not going to teach them how to do this. They're going to have an anxiety attack. They're going to freak out. They're going to pull their mask off, and they're going to drown. So the problem is, how are we supposed to do this? So they do what you would naturally do. I know you're already thinking of it. They called up their anesthesiologist friend in Great Britain, who's also a cave diver. Lucky for them. And they say, hey, we need you to come knock these boys out so we can swim them out. And that's what they do. This doc flies in, swims back in the cave to these boys, and first he gives them a Xanax, of course, got to calm them down. Then in one leg he gives them a shot of ketamine, atropine. Atropine, he gives them a shot of atropine, which dries up your mouth so they don't drown on their own saliva while this is going on. Then a shot of ketamine in their other leg to knock them out. Then what they do is they put an airtight mask on them, put them in an airtight body bag, and then they start swimming them out through the caves. And spoiler alert, it works. It's awesome. Go watch this. It's incredible. The thing, though, is this. That's the cool part, but this is the important part for us. There these boys were, sitting on their cave, sitting on that little shelf in the cave for almost 10 days, just nothing doing. When all of a sudden, two little heads pop out of the water in front of them. They don't know these people from Adam. They don't know who these guys are. They can't call anybody and say, hey, are these guys legit? Like, they seem kind of weird. They can't Google them. They can't discover how great they are. All they can do is say, well, here you are. You seem to be the one option. We'll do whatever you tell us to do. It's incredible that they just literally and so simply entrust their lives to them. You want to knock us out and put us in a body bag and drag us through the water? Okay, whatever you say, we'll do it. They literally just entrust their entire life to them. Literally surrender their entire life into their hands. So this is why it's one of the most powerful images I've ever come across for what it is that Jesus has done for us, but then also what he is asking us to do in response. It's Christ that swims into this cave, but then he says, I need you to do something for me. I need you to trust me. This is what we call faith. We have to entrust our lives by faith to this Jesus guy. Also, I want you to think real quick. How ridiculous would it have been if when those cave divers showed up, they found these boys and their coach arguing about money? Like, who's can be the richest person ever in this cave? How ridiculous would it have been if they found these boys in the cave, like trying to dig out other parts of the cave so they had a nicer cave to live in? How ridiculous would it have been if they were trying to have an election in there to say who should be the governor of this cave while we're in here for the next 2 days before we're dead? How ridiculous would that have been? It would have been absolutely ludicrous if that's what they were spending their time doing. No, trapped in this cave, the single greatest concern of their life, the number one thing on their mind at all times, the one thing that dominated their mind and imagination was somebody needs to come to rescue us or we are dead meat. If we don't have a way out of this cave, it doesn't matter what we do in this cave because we're dead anyway. That's what they had recognized. And then one day it arrives. A person arrives. And this person, random person, they've never seen him before. This random person says, I can get you out of here. I promise, I can get you out of here. But that promise has a simple condition. I need you to trust me on this. And this plan sounds crazy, but you got to trust me. You have to entrust your life to me. This is where we're at in rerouting. We're at this fork in the road. We're the ones that are stuck and trapped. We're in this captivity. We've talked about that for several weeks. I'm not going to rehearse that for you again. But the road is one. We get to pick one of two roads. We get to pick one road that I call the American dream, which is you do you and you do whatever you want to do in your life and you chase every dream that you've ever had and go for it. And then we hit the dead end of that road one day. Or we take this other road, which isn't fun at times because it involves handing over our life to another. It involves entrusting our life to another, surrendering our life into another's hands. It's the two roads. The American dream, dead end. Complete surrender to Christ. Everything. The point of Christianity, of Catholicism, the story of the gospel, it's that simple story that someone arrived. This Jesus guy from Nazareth. And people were very confused when he first showed up too. But he promised, I can rescue you. Jesus simply has one condition. He can't do it without us. He says, you have to entrust your life to me. You have to surrender your life into my hands. I can't just do this without you. You have to do that part at least. We can't just swim out of this cave by sheer determination. No success in the American dream is ever going to get this done for you. I guarantee it. but we can make a decision to entrust our lives to Christ. And that's what's called being a disciple. That's what that fancy word means, to become a disciple. And Jesus, he tells us what it means to be a disciple and what it will take to be a disciple. In Mark chapter 8, the 8th chapter of Mark's gospel, Jesus says, whoever wants to be my disciple and surrender their life into my hands and trust their life to me, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Again, you just have to think how much time that we spend in our lives trying to save our own life, trying to give ourselves our own life, provide for ourselves, gain the whole world. That's literally the American dream. Jesus didn't have that word yet, but that's literally what he's describing. You can do it yourself. Just work harder. Just try more. You'll get there. Jesus is saying, if you try to do that, you're going to lose your life. He says instead, you have to make this decision to follow me. And as Jesus says very clearly, what is it? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves. What comes to your mind when you hear deny yourself? Because this is the key to it all. We're in the middle of Lent, which means when we hear deny ourselves, we're like, well, Father, guess what? I gave up chocolate. And, because you said chocolate was lame, I gave up two things. I also gave up coffee. And this is beautiful, wonderful. I'm glad you're making such a great sacrifice for Jesus. It is a beautiful thing. I'm not trying to mock it. It's a beautiful thing that we make these sacrifices for Jesus. But that's not what deny means in the Greek there. Deny is what the word for that would be complete disownment. The example would be if I don't know if any of you have ever sold a car, but there's that decisive moment when you sell your car where you have to sign the title and hand it to the other person. At that point, the car is theirs. And the next day, they can go sell it to somebody else. They can go drive it off a cliff, and you have zero say. It's their car now. The word in Greek for deny yourself is disown yourself. Right? Sell your title. Sign the title of your life over to another. Place your life into another's hands. That's what deny yourself means. Not, I didn't eat chocolate today, I'm doing good. No. Sign the title of your life away is what Jesus is saying. Today as you walked in, okay, nobody stole it. Today as you walked in, there was a small little card. I printed it in color just so you couldn't miss it, but maybe you did. You can grab one on the way out. But I printed these off so that this card can be a small but a simple way, a concrete and a tangible way by which we can make a concrete response to Jesus, to this invitation that he's making of us. Again, we have to at some point make a decision. It's wonderful that we come to Mass every Sunday. That's wonderful, beautiful, thank you. But at a certain point, we have to make a decision. I'm going to follow Christ in every part of my life. I'm not just going to put my butt in a pew on a Sunday, but I'm actually going to entrust, sign over the title of my life to another. This is what this says. I, fill in your name, I, Michael, a repentant sinner, decide today to surrender the ownership of my life to the good Father. I renew the vows of my baptism to renounce Satan and to follow Jesus Christ more deliberately than I ever have before. Again, so in the couple of weeks at Easter, you're going to renew your baptismal promises. And that's what Easter and the baptismal promises are supposed to be, is this renewal of, oh yeah, I'm giving my life to Christ. I 3 times reject Satan and all his empty promises and all his empty works. And then I say, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, I believe in the Holy Spirit and his church. So that's what this renewal of our baptismal promises is supposed to be. And yet, Easter morning, we're thinking about Easter eggs, and you know that Father's about to run around the church and sprinkle everybody with water, and it's like, that's fun, because all the kids get freaked out, so we're not really thinking about what we're doing. So this is meant to be that. Sorry, I'll keep reading it. Jesus, I give you my life. I give you my heart that you may forever set it on fire for love of you and for others. Keep my heart pure with your perfect love, so that I may entrust myself totally to you. Jesus, please use me, that I might bring one more to you. Signed, Father Michael Brungard. I'm going to put a box out next week. I didn't put it out this week because I don't want you to just sign it real quick today, throw it in the box and say, done. I want you to take this and pray with it for the next couple of weeks. I don't want you to sign it and throw it in the box to make me feel better. Please don't do that. I want you to use this as a concrete way that you can make that decision to follow Christ in a new way. I want you to say, yeah, Lord, after everything that I've heard, after all that you have done for me, I know that the only way forward is to place my life into your hands. And so this is a concrete way to say yes to that. This is what happened in baptism. Once we lived in darkness, in blindness. That's the gospel we read today. But just like this man born blind, Jesus has come and opened our eyes to the greater truth of what's going on. Once we lived in captivity and slavery to sin and death and Satan and all of his minions. But through baptism, through the waters of baptism, that's why I love this movie so much, because it's literally through the waters of these caves that these boys are given a new life. They're rescued through the water. It's a perfect image. Here we are, through our baptism, through the waters of baptism, we were given a new life. Through baptism, we were once rescued and became adopted children of the Father. The thing is, it's not magic. It takes an actual decision on our part. We have to actually make a decision to entrust our lives to him and to follow him. So Jesus is asking us, each and every one of us, first and foremost today, will you sign the title of your life over? Will you entrust your life to my hands? And how many of us here can say we've already done that? I don't know. But each and every one of us during these next several weeks leading up to Easter, that's what we should begin considering and reflecting on. Can I entrust my life to Christ? Can I follow him down that path? And if I can't at this moment, what is it that holds me back?